Reflections with Marilyn Baker. Brought to you by Torch Trust, the Christian organisation with a vision for people with sight loss.
Hello, I'm Marilyn Baker, and welcome along to this edition of Reflections from the Torch Trust, the UK's Christian sight loss charity. We're covering plenty of things in this week's edition of Reflections, including hearing about a new piece of technology for those living with sight loss to help them access live events. We've got the latest news on Torch holidays, which are taking place in 2026. But before we get stuck into all that, this week in the United Kingdom, it's National Storytelling Week, which encourages each of us to explore various forms of storytelling in its many forms. So here to walk us through how we could mark it from a Christian perspective is our Torch Resource Curator, Jeanette.
Reflections from Torch Trust.
Hello, it's Jeanette here. Not surprisingly, as we're thinking about National Storytelling Week, I'm here as Torch's Resource Curator to talk about just some of the great stories and literature we have both in the library and in the shop. With that in mind, I was delighted to find a book called Our Precious Lives, Why Telling and Hearing Stories Can Save the Church, written by Steve Morris and published by Authentic Media. In his foreword to the book, Alistair McGrath says, "It's a delight to read and a testimony of the power of stories to capture minds and change lives. Steve has grasped the way in which the Christian story can make sense of our own stories, show us what has gone wrong, and open the door to God's life-changing grace. His moving telling of his own story is the starting point for a deep, engaging, and helpful exploration of how we can make sense of our lives and help others to do so as well." Quite a recommendation. The book is full of engaging stories from a wide range of literary sources, including, of course, the Bible. It makes claims that stories can actually change the way in which our brains are wired and shows their transformative power in the hands of the master storyteller, Jesus himself. So if you want to respond to the challenge of Storytelling Week by immersing yourselves in, telling, sharing and listening to stories, what else have we to offer? Well, people's stories and testimonies of God's work in their lives are always popular here at Torch. Along with newer stories, we of course have the classics: Corrie ten Boom, The Hiding Place; Angus Buchan, Faith Like Potatoes; Emily Owen, Still Emily; Doreen Irvin, From Witchcraft to Christ; Brother Andrew, God's Smuggler, and many more. Every so often, I love to go back to these stories, which I read in my youth. They are so faith-inspiring. But if you want something new, then they're always coming in too. Books like Inspired, Stories of Adventure, Risk-Taking, and God's Faithfulness, published by Tem Publishing, costs $8.99 and is in all mediums. Inspired brings together the stories of 8 very different individuals. Although their lives are unique, they all share the same thing. They are being used by God to share the gospel of hope around the world. From the jungles of Brazil to the mountains of Cambodia, Simon Gillibow introduces a series of modern-day missionary stories that will encourage your faith and reassure you that God is still very much at work in the world. Or there are individual biographies, such as The Girl from Montego Bay, published by SPCK, which is the inspiring autobiography of Rose Hudson Wilkin, Britain's first black woman bishop and trailblazer for faith, leadership and social change for over 4 decades. I am and have always been a bookworm. My best Christmas present is a book. I was the one found as a child still reading by the landing light at 12 o'clock at night. Stories drew me in and took me somewhere, and children's books still appeal today. I used to work in Leicester and used to pass a homeless man who gave me a copy of You Are Special by Max Lucado. Somebody had given it to him. It's a beautiful story. Every day in the land of the Wemmicks, the small wooden people do the same thing. They stick either gold stars or grey dots onto one another. The pretty ones, those with smooth wood and fine paint, the talented ones, always get stars. Others, though, who can do little or who have chipped paint get ugly grey dots. Such is the fate of poor Punchinello. It's only as he meets his maker, Eli the woodcarver, that Punchinello begins to understand how special he is, no matter what other Wemmicks may think. It's a vital message for us all, that regardless of how the world evaluates us, God cherishes each of us just as we are. I'm glad my homeless man got to read it and appreciate its message. Pretty apt when the theme of this year's Storytelling Week is speaking story into the darkness. But sometimes we just want books to amuse and relax with, and that is where Christian fiction can come in. You can read books assured you're not going to come up against those awful scenes that can make your toes curl. Again, we have lots to offer. I've just finished reading the 4 books in the Diary of Isabella M. Smooge series, written by Ruth Lee and published by Instant Apostle. They are delightful. Isabella is an Instagram influencer who, when she moves from London to the country, finds her perfect life is falling apart. She begins to change amongst her friends in the village and the local church. The books are funny and touching as you watch her development and changing values. Well, as my story of staying up beyond midnight would suggest, I could go on about books, but hopefully I've given you a taster and encourage you to explore some more, to find which sorts of stories inspire your faith. Happy Storytellers Week!
Thank you, Jeanette, there, for walking us through just a small selection of what's on offer in the Torch Library and shop for the 2026 Storytelling Week. The Bible, of course, has plenty of stories. Perhaps today that could be a starting point for you. Time now to hear about some brand new technology. It's from a company called GiveVision, who have designed a headset which brings people closer to live events. Torch Trust's Chris Byland has been finding out about it.
Reflections from Torch Trust.
Joanna Liddington, Head of Operations at GiveVision, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really interested in finding out more about the technology GiveVision has developed. Just give us a quick overview of what it is and how it works.
So GiveVision was a company we've been around for quite a while now. We focus on developing headsets for people with sight loss that essentially helps them to regain some of their sight, a little bit like how a hearing aid helps them regain some of their hearing. And we've been really focusing on working in the sports and event space with this. So we work with a lot of stadiums and we're starting to work with some theatres, festivals, that kind of stuff. And the aim really here is to kind of break down those barriers to watching these performances for people with sight loss. So they come back. We studies show that a lot of people with sight loss aren't going to the events, and we think that the lack of accessibility is one of the reasons why.
So does the technology work with all types of sight loss?
So technology has been developed to work with people who have some remaining vision. So this is maybe someone who would use a magnification tool, take a photo on their phone or zoom in. It should work for them. I mean, you never know until you've tried something if it might work for you or not, but that's our general rule of thumb.
And you mentioned you've developed this technology to work in sports. I know you've developed a partnership with Crystal Palace, who are the first Premier League team to take on this technology. It's also been used at the Wimbledon tennis tournament, the Olympic, Paralympic Games and music festivals, which you mentioned. What sort of feedback are you getting from people using the equipment?
We've had some amazing feedback. I think we've been very lucky to work so closely with the visually impaired community from day one. Obviously, they're really the driving force behind this, and every change, update, modification that we make is from feedback from that community. The responses are pretty much always a resounding, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Sometimes people get quite emotional because it's the first time they've seen something for a long time, or maybe in their life. I don't know if I can say my favourite quote over the radio, but someone said, OMG, I can bleep see, which I just think just summarises it for me.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds amazing. Just talk us through exactly what it is you've developed, because I've seen pictures of it. It looks fantastic. It's kind of a headset, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a headset. There's a screen inside the headset, and what this really does for a lot of people with sight loss, what they need to do is bring something close to them and magnify it and maybe make it brighter. And obviously in a sports environment, you can't go and stand on the pitch. So we're really bringing the pitch to those individuals. But the real key feature here is that we connect in with the TV cameras around the pitch or in front of the stage or wherever it is. And then we get the real-time footage to the headset as everything's happening. So you always get that best view. I know that in a lot of sports, particularly when we did Wimbledon, that tennis ball moves at a very, very fast pace and it's really hard to keep track of, but the camera operators are incredible at doing that. So that's what people are seeing in the headset when they're using them.
That sounds absolutely incredible. A lot of organisations nowadays say that they're thinking more about how to be accessible, and having this sort of technology from GiveVision in place really sounds like it's enabling users to get closer to the action and seems like a step in the right direction. So what seems to be the barrier you're having to overcome getting the GiveVision headsets in, say, every Premier League stadium or in every major theatre, for example?
So first of all, you're absolutely correct. I think a lot of venues are starting to, and I say starting, and this should have been happening a long time ago, but really starting to look at their accessibility a bit more and realising that, accessibility isn't optional, it's a must-have, not a nice-to-have. And that actually really is the main issue we're facing here is, I think, a lack of education and a lack of understanding. It's very common for us to speak to people and find that they don't truly really understand what sight loss is. There's all those misconceptions that people always come across, is that if someone has sight loss, they're totally blind and that's it, which of course isn't reflective over the vast majority of people with sight loss. That's just kind of a small example of really what we're experiencing. I think that a lot of clubs don't quite realise that they can offer stuff like this for their fans, and that can be a difference for their fans. We're still relatively new and we're still trying to get the word out there. So it's still very often we'll approach someone and be like, oh, I've never heard of you. And that's kind of where we're at now.
So it's really just a case of getting the name out there and doing the do, by the sounds of things. So
Yeah.
What's the next step in terms of the research for you? Because you've been developing this for, I think you said 10 years. What's next to enhance what you're doing already?
That is a great question. And given that it's technology, the answer to that probably changes every week, every time we discuss some new options that we want to look into. I mean, ideally, we would love to find the ways to reduce the size of the headset. We would love to find ways to have other uses for it outside of watching the match day. I mean, the world's your oyster, really, isn't it? So anything you can think of, we thought of it. But that's really the aim, is how can we make this more accessible for more people? How can we get this into sort of every venue so this is just a standard accessibility feature? And how can we make it more comfortable, more agile, more clearer to watch?
So it's really just about enhancing the experience for the user. We've spoken a lot about how it's for events and music festivals and football and theatre. Is there any thought about bringing it into the home and making it a home device?
So it actually started life as a home device, and then 3 or 4 years ago we changed out of that. There are still some companies who offer these headsets as home devices. They do a fantastic job. But we really pivoted because we noticed that accessibility in sports venues just hadn't improved for a very long time. Are we likely to move back into that space again in the future? I hope so, I really do.
And what about away from the headset? I know GiveVision are looking to develop other things. Is there anything else you are currently developing?
Fortunately, that's top secret. Nothing that I'm allowed to divulge at this point, but there's always something going on, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, GiveVision are obviously in a really, really good place with this kind of technology. Are you planning on working with the likes of the audio description companies that would also bring in a new kind of aspect to what you're doing?
I think that would be fantastic. I think the audio description is absolutely brilliant, and it would be really great to find a way to combine the two so we can offer them together to fans.
Joanna, thank you so much for joining us here on Reflections. If anyone listening wants to find out more about GiveVision or to even implement it in an event they're running, how can they get more information?
So the best way to get in touch is to go to any of our social media profiles, all under GiveVision, or you can visit our website at www.givevision.net. At the moment, we're really looking to find more people with sight loss to try out the headset, give us feedback, and help spread the word out there. So anyone who is listening who is interested, please reach out to us.
Joanna from GiveVision there explaining how their headset brings people closer to live events. And in case you want to follow up her offer she just mentioned about giving it a try, visit givevision.net. Thank you once again to them for the amazing work which they're doing. Now every year, Torch organises some amazing holidays, and this year we have something pretty special to tell you about for people with sight loss who would like to have a holiday with some Christian content. Our very own Becky has all the details.
It's so lovely to be here today to share some exciting news, especially if you're blind or partially sighted and you enjoy getting away somewhere friendly, supportive and full of good company. We're absolutely delighted to have launched our Torch Together holiday programme for 2026. There are some familiar favourites returning and also something brand new, which I'll tell you about in a moment. Now, Torch Together holidays are designed specifically for blind and partially sighted people. They're relaxed, fully catered breaks where you can switch off, enjoy good food, explore new places, share faith together if you like, and most importantly, spend time with people who just get it. And if you'd like to bring a friend or family member along with you as a guest, you're very welcome to do that too. So let's start by talking about Poole, because we've got 2 weeks available there in 2026 and it's always incredibly popular. Both weeks are at the Greenhouse Christian Centre, which is tucked away in a leafy suburb between Bournemouth and Poole. It's one of those places that instantly feels calm. Wide avenues, tall redwood trees, and a beautiful old Victorian villa that really does feel like a home away from home. Inside, there's a lovely light-filled lounge and a warm conservatory looking out over the gardens, plus a peaceful chapel if you fancy some quiet time. And yes, there's even an outdoor heated pool, as long as swimmers are accompanied. The dates for Poole are the 8th to the 12th of June and the 20th to the 24th of July, both in 2026. Each week is £600, and that's fully catered. You'll get either a cooked or continental breakfast, and the food is a real highlight. The kitchen team are passionate about freshly made, homely meals using good seasonal ingredients, and they're very happy to cater for dietary needs. During the week, there'll be gentle trips out, exploring the local area, plenty of time to relax with friends, and space for spiritual refreshment as we spend time in God's Word together, all at a pace that feels comfortable and welcoming. Getting there is straightforward too. Bournemouth railway station is less than 3 miles away, with plenty of local taxis available. Now, here's the new bit for 2026, and we're especially excited about this one. For the first time, we're offering a Torch Together holiday at the Hayes Conference Centre in Derbyshire. It's set in 100 acres of beautiful countryside. This holiday runs from the 7th to the 11th of September this year, and it's also £600. This particular break is being especially offered to people who have lost their sight or experienced a significant deterioration in their sight in recent years. The idea is to create a space where you can meet others who are navigating similar changes, share experiences, support one another, and just talk openly with people who understand. The Hayes is fully catered and very generously so. You have breakfast, mid-morning coffee, a hot buffet lunch, afternoon tea with cake, and evening meals. So expect traditional English, home-cooked food with plenty of choice. There are relaxing lounges, a bar, beautiful gardens, and lots of space to explore. It's worth mentioning that it is a large site. And while our bedrooms and meeting room are fairly close together, the dining room and lounges do involve a longer walk, something to be aware of when deciding if it's right for you. And again, if you'd like to bring a friend or family member as a guest, you're very welcome to do so. Transport-wise, Alfreton Railway Station is about 3 miles away, with local taxis available. Now, just a quick word about booking. Applications for Torch Together holidays are already open, and there are 2 easy ways for people to apply. You can email info@torchtrust.org to request a booking form. You need to complete it and send it back as soon as you're able. Or, if you prefer the phone, you can request a call back from the holiday bookings team on 01858 438 260. Once an application has been received, we aim to respond within 2 weeks. So if a gentle, friendly holiday with good food, lovely surroundings and supportive company sounds like something you'd enjoy in 2026, do take a look or get in touch and have a chat. It really would be great to welcome you along.
Thank you so much, Becky. I've been to some of the venues Becky's talking about and they are great. We've packed quite a lot into this week's edition of Reflections, so if you want to find out more about the Torch Trust and the work it's doing to support people with sight loss across the UK, you can call the team on 01858 438 260 and they'd be only too happy to help in any way that they can, whether that's helping to find Bible resources, audio, braille, or just some more information about sight loss friendly churches. Just give them a call. That number once more is 01858 438 260. So from me, Marilyn Baker, and all of us on the Reflections team, God bless.
Reflections from Torch Trust.